Camping just isn't camping without a campfire. When you're car camping, firewood is easy. You either pick it up along the way or you buy it when you get to the campsite. Transporting it is easy because you have a whole car or a truck bed or a trailer or whatever it is to transport it with. Worrying about whether or not you're gonna have a campfire when you're car camping is something that rarely happens. On a motorcycle, however, things are a little different. Figuring out how I'm gonna get firewood on a motorcycle camping trip is always a major source of anxiety for me. And over the years, I've picked up a few tips, a few approaches that have worked for me. And so if finding firewood or transporting firewood or figuring out how to get firewood while you're camping off of your motorcycle is a concern for you, let's talk about what you can do to alleviate that and make sure that your moto camping trips are just as fun as any other type of camping trip. Option 1 for picking up campfire wood on your motorcycle, just buy it at the campground. This is the easiest strategy. A lot of campgrounds will sell firewood on site. You can check ahead of time. Sometimes the website will say whether or not they sell the firewood. You can also call the county or the local Forest Service office, whatever it is that's in charge of that campground, and ask them if you're not sure. Or if you can, the best thing to do is just take a day trip on your bike and ride out there and see, because sometimes they'll sell it on site and it won't say it on the website, whatever. So getting there and looking at it is ideal. But if you're going somewhere far flung, sometimes a little research ahead of time can alleviate that anxiety. It's not the cheapest way to get firewood for sure. They generally charge a premium, like $7 or $10 a bundle for like 6 pieces of firewood, but it is the most convenient. Some camp hosts, if you're in a cool campground, will even deliver the firewood to your site, so you don't have to transport firewood at all, not even the quarter mile from the camp host to your campsite or whatever it may be. Always ask the camp host or whoever you're buying the firewood from if you can, even if it doesn't say that delivery is available, particularly if you see them running around in a golf cart or a Cushman or something, because maybe they don't strictly offer it, but if you mention you're on a motorcycle, most of the time they're pretty happy to just throw that stuff in their golf cart and drop it off at your campsite while they're making their rounds. I've had that happen plenty of times, so always ask. So that's option 1, the most ideal. Option 2 requires you to transport wood on your motorcycle. This technique applies whether you're moving the wood from the camp host to your campsite on your bike, or if you have to run into town to pick up a bundle to take back to camp. A few caveats here. 1, it is not safe to transport bundles of firewood on your bike. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying be very careful because it could go badly quickly. Do not do it for long distances. I generally won't do it for more than a few miles at most. It's not like I would load up a bundle of firewood at home and take it on a long 200-mile trip with me. This is more of a get to camp, set up camp, ride back into town 10 minutes to grab some beer and firewood situation. Do not do it for longer than you need to. And most importantly, definitely do not move firewood from one region to another. I hope nobody is, again, putting it on their bike and riding hundreds of miles, but you're not supposed to move firewood from one region to another because you can move invasive bugs and other things. So don't do that. Always buy it where you burn it. So we've established that transporting wood is difficult, dangerous, and you shouldn't do it for very far, but if you need to do it, say from the camp host or from a local store, here's what I recommend. Rock straps or the green chili Mondo straps work best. The ones that have an elastic end that can attach to 2 separate tie-down points are good. Giant loop pronghorn straps can work, but you got to get kind of creative because they have to run the full length doubled up. You know what I mean if you've used them. Whereas a rock strap or a Mondo strap doesn't have to do that. You can use the full length of the strap for attaching it to the bike. You can also use the beaver tail on your rackless luggage. I've done that. So like the Giant Loop Coyote or any of the Moscow rackless things have that beaver tail in the middle on the back with straps that extend out. So if you can just loosen that, slide the bundle in and then pull the straps tight, you can usually transport a bundle on your motorcycle. Now I do not recommend, in fact, I'm telling you not to take more than 1 bundle at a time. If that means you have to make 2 trips from the camp host to your site and back, do that. If you're picking up firewood somewhere far enough away that 2 trips would be impossible or really inconvenient, then you probably need to just buy 1 bundle. You should not strap 2 bundles of firewood to your bike. You're gonna get creative and figure out a way, that's fine, but my official stance is don't do that. So you're just gonna find a couple secure anchor points on the back of the bike. I like to use grab handles. I like to use passenger foot peg mounts. You're gonna make an X with the straps, so you want them to cross each other. Put the firewood on the back of the bike, put the straps over the top in an X pattern so they don't slide off the ends, and tighten them down as tight as you can. If you're worried about pokies into your seat or you don't have a rear rack, then put something underneath your bundle of firewood, or just be careful and make sure that it's smooth on the bottom. That's up to you, but that is a concern. You can, if there are little pokies on the firewood, put holes in your seat, so be careful there. Now the most important part of that is once you've got the straps tight tighten down in an X. You got to slap the top of the firewood and say that's not going anywhere. If you don't do that, it will go somewhere. So make sure that you say that, and then you get on the bike and you ride very slowly and carefully back to your campsite. In a campground where you're going slowly and not far, consequences for failure here are mostly minimal. Your firewood falls on the ground and you have to pick it up. Had that happen before. If you're going highway speeds for a few miles though, you need to be sure that bundle is secure. You do not want it to interfere with your safe operation of the motorcycle, and you definitely don't want it coming loose and hitting you in a crash. Legally speaking, we're not officially recommending riding like on the highway with a bundle of firewood on your bike, but I know some of you will do it, so make sure your stuff is strapped down and be very careful and safe. That's option 2, transporting firewood to your campsite. Option 3 is harvesting firewood. Now you're gonna wanna check the local regulations where you're camping, whether it's a national forest. National forests typically will allow you to harvest firewood for campfire purposes. You're not allowed to just go fill up a truck bed with firewood without buying a permit generally. But in terms of just harvesting some stuff for a campfire to cook over or keep you warm, that's generally allowed. You wanna look for dead, down, and dry wood as much as possible. Do not cut down live trees. 1, it's bad for the forest, and 2, they don't burn anyway, so don't be a dum-dum. Try to find dead trees that are on the ground, leaning up against another tree, something like that. Make sure you know the difference between a dead tree and one that doesn't have leaves in the winter before you go cutting anything down. Focus on what's on the ground if you can. I should point out here that I am talking about doing this in national forests and dispersed campsites, not in a campground. You should not harvest wood in a campground. Don't do that. If everyone did it, there'd be no woods for the campground, so don't be that guy. If you're dispersed camping, hopefully that wood is within walking distance of your campsite, but if you're in a campground or there's no good wood near your dispersed campsite, you may have to combine option 2 with option 3. You may have to harvest the wood and then transport it. So see all the things I said previously, except make sure you've got it wrapped in a tight bundle before you try to put it on your bike. So what tools do you need if you're gonna go out and go firewood harvesting? Well, I recommend a good handsaw. Silky saws are some of the best I've ever used. They cut incredibly quickly. They're well designed. They're rugged, sturdy, last a long time. Motocamp Nerd sells 3 different versions of the Silky saw, and we also sell a small hatchet, which if you're trying to be as compact as possible but still have something to split kindling, that's a good option. I personally like to carry a forest axe, also known as a boy's axe or a bushcraft axe. It's just a shorter handled axe that'll strap to the top of a pannier. That's super convenient for chopping kindling and stuff like that, or chopping up larger pieces of wood, splitting up wood. It's nice to have that axe with a little bit more heft to it, so recommend those if you are looking for fire harvesting and processing tools to take on the bike. Like all things with moto camping, getting firewood while you're camping off your bike takes a little bit more effort than it does with things like car camping or RV camping. Hopefully you're just camped in a campground with firewood or right next to a town that sells it, but if not, now you have some idea how to gather and transport firewood on your motorcycle if need be, so that you can have the most pleasant, most fun, most enjoyable campfire evening possible, assuming fires aren't banned because it's the middle of a very dry summer, like right now here in Oregon. It's more work, but it's sure worth it when you're sitting by the campfire in the dark, staring into the fiery abyss, contemplating the meaning of life, or whatever it is other people do around the campfires at night while they're moto camping. Don't forget that Motocamp Nerd is your one-stop shop for all things motorcycle camping. Every single piece of gear on the site has been tested, vetted, and recommended by both Motocamp Nerd Ben and me, Dork in the Road Ben. Everything there has been chosen specifically to cater to the unique needs of motorcycle campers. So if you're not sure what's gonna work for moto camping, just head over to the site and check out the full selection, because Motocamp Nerd has all the gear you need to pack small and camp easy.